please like, subscribe to our YouTube channel and share.
Molweni, I am Thulani Ndzotyana, and you are tuned into the RSA Models Awards podcast.
Welcome again to another episode of Chilling or Sitting with the Stars. My name is Lisa Hoboya, and I am with my co-host.
Sanmonani, guys, you already know who it is, or do you know? Kamalami Kukule Swagam Charlie, the dynamite from Soja, and today on the RSA Models Awards podcast, guess what? Hey, I don't know. Today we have someone who has been in the pageant industry, done pageants that I know you at home want to do, and you know what? We're giving you the 411 today. I mean, what are we good for? Exactly that. Giving you the 411. Sweet, welcome.
Hello, sheesh. Listen, I'm sure people are tuned in. They're like, what's the guy? So I receive it, man. Thank you so much for having me, ladies.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to be here.
We are very excited. We've been waiting for this interview because we're like, this person has done pageants that people want to go to. Trust me. And the top two that I will talk about, Miss Mamelodi Sundowns and Miss South Africa. Those two, everybody's like, I want to be there. Tell us about yourself before we go far.
Sanbonani, my name is Thulani Ndzotyana. I'm a 25-year-old Esuka Eqabecha in the Eastern Cape. I am soon to be a BCom law graduate. And
yes! Education, guys, education.
And I work as a senior artist agent at Talent ETC, where I'm the HOD of the company, and I also own a business called Stride Institute, where the pageant training, model coaching, and public speaking is something that I do. I also am a sign model and voiceover artist. So I like to think I have a 360 view of the entertainment industry.
Definitely. I mean, what don't you do in the entertainment industry, ma'am?
I don't sing.
We can try right now. 1, 2.
Not even a TikTok dance.
I mean, today we're going to try to sing, but at the end.
At the end.
Then let's get to the interview. I mean. But you are someone that we definitely see a lot in the pageant industry. Tell us about the beginning. Where did it all start?
So my first pageant I did in church.
Okay.
At New Brighton Township.
Hallelujah.
I was very young at the time, and I just remember Umama Mgumuisile, meaning she goes to a Methodist church, and they used to just wear these uniforms, and they were called Otemba no Notemba. But I think the beautiful thing about watching that pageant, it was young people who firstly were passionate about the community, but also their relationship with Christ. Yeah. So then immediately I was inspired. I was like, yo, they're so confident. Like there's old people in church watching, listening to the goals of them. So that was a pageant that I then did. And from then onwards, I think how pageantry was introduced to me is that it's a leadership platform. It's an opportunity for us as women in particular. I know it empowers both male, female, and the different genders, but women have been empowered so much through pageantry. We've found our voice and we've been able to really be part of the change that we want to see. So that's how I was introduced to it. And, you know, I've done a few pageants in Port Elizabeth, but what brought me to Gauteng was when I won Miss Mamelodi Sundowns in 2018. And I think that is how Stride was birthed, through the work that the Mamelodi Sundowns brand was doing and the Mutsipe Foundation was doing, just seeing what they were doing week in, week out. We don't see a lot of it on social media, but that's the work that they do behind closed doors, and getting to be a part of that as Miss Mamelodi Sundowns, I was like, this is what I've always wanted, but I don't want it to end here, because knowledge can be shared. You know, sometimes we think that giving back is monetary, but sometimes it's just sharing of resources that can equip the next person to better and change their life. So yeah.
I don't know if we are very early in our podcast for me to bring in the fire, but I just we'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
Love at the beginning of it because it has such a strong foundation, you know, church. We had a bit of a conversation. I entered a pageant once and they were like, oh, debate. And they're just like, women and transgender women.
Yeah.
Should they be allowed in this platform? Gay people, da 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 da. What do you guys think? I mean, this is something very controversial. I think before we go back to the core part of the interview, what do you guys think?
For me, I love that, for instance, when I look at Miss South Africa, they are very inclusive. Because I think so many people for far too long have just been sidelined. And for me, we should be allowed to be in spaces that are going to allow us to bring about change. So if you look at some of the different pageants. They are there to equip, empower, and teach. So why are we saying only certain people can be? That's why even when I like go to schools or do different work, I'm always like, don't leave the boy child behind. Yes, I'm a Miss what, but it doesn't mean that my impact is only for women. So I think the space should definitely be opened, and I'm glad that these conversations are happening, but I think also more people need to be educated in terms of what it means, because I think sometimes people hear something that perhaps they've never been exposed to, and they then have an opinion without actually sitting, hearing, and understanding. And I think for me, something that I got to understand, especially when working with the LGBTQIA plus community, by being an agent, because obviously as an artist agent you sometimes have to advocate for pronouns and just different things that people want to come across when they are in spaces like on set. It taught me, and I realized that the only way to go about it is to ask the uncomfortable questions. Instead of me assuming as someone who's perhaps heterosexual, why don't I ask someone who belongs to that community and also know that their experience doesn't speak for everyone. So I think that's something that I've learned, and we need more of these questions. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think? I mean,
I'm all for inclusivity. I mean, why should we be sidelined for who you are?
Yeah.
Why? Because we are being told to be authentic. So how am I going to be authentic if you guys are sidelining
me?
Saying that because you're this, you can't be here. Why?
Yeah.
Why? This is an empowerment program, right?
Yes,
so we need to empower everyone from all aspects of life.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate for me. I was on the other side that was saying they shouldn't be. And because we had no choice. So they were like, you say you are for, you are against.
Sheesh. Was this a debate?
Yes,
Okay,
it's a debate for
but that's what a
points,
debate.
Pageant,
So that's what debates are, because they also bring other points that perhaps you wouldn't have thought.
And I'm just like, now I have to say, you know. But yeah, so going back to you start at church, you go to Miss Mamelodi Sundowns, which is amazing. Guys, I feel like that pageant has just birthed so many dreams.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Do you hear that, Sundowns?
I hope they hear that.
As well.
So many, you know, and I think a lot of girls who enter pageants want to go to Miss Mamelodi Sundowns.
Absolutely.
Why did you go? What?
So firstly, before I knew about Mamelodi Sundowns, I knew about the Mutipe Foundation. I remember when I was actually in grade 11, I had also applied for one of the bursaries that they have for, you know, students who are trying to break into different industries for matric. And I've grown up in a football home, and anyone who knows my uncle and my late dad, like they are called Uncle Buccaneer.
I know that your dad was a
Buccaneer. Even my uncle till this day, he's like, and what was versus my mom was a Kaizer Chiefs supporter. So we would go to games, like we would watch games at the stadium in Nelson Mandela. I think there was a point in grade 11 and 12 where I was going to every rugby game and every soccer game that was happening at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, because I've just always been someone who loves sport, right? But for me, the connection was definitely Coach Pitso Mosimane. That was one of the reasons I started following Sundowns. He was very controversial, and at the time he was a coach. And I loved how freely he speaks his mind. I mean, I used to mimic him, and I've even done an oral on him when I was still in high school for grade 11 that I once did on Bafana Bafana. So
one can actually tell that you really adore Pitso, because I remember on your farewell speech, that was so touching, when you thanked him, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Thing is, people can inspire you from far, and that's what he did for me. And I remember even when I went back to school, when I was Miss Mamelodi Sundowns Eastern Cape, and I bumped into Mr. Fori. Like, he gave me a side eye. He was like, I always knew, because whenever like Bafana Bafana was playing, I would go to his class and say, did you see that we won? Because everyone was so quick to make noise when they didn't. So I think I just got really invested in following the PSL and promoting football. I think for me, I'm one of those people, if you say people can't do something, I want to stand with them and say they can. So that's where the mentality of supporting Bafana Bafana came from. And then obviously in that journey, he then was the Mamelodi Sundowns coach, and I was just like, this team is unbeatable, and it's owned, you know, by at the time Dr. Patrice Mutsipe, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. What they're doing for women across the country is phenomenal. And one thing I want to say to anyone who's listening to this, you are never too young, because I remember I thought I would do Miss Sundowns in my 3rd year at the time, because 2017 was when I was doing my 1st year at NMU, and I then entered Mr. and Miss Freshett, which is like the 1st year pageant introducing you to university. And there was a girl, Ora, who actually was Miss Mamelodi Sundowns Eastern Cape at the time, and she was one of the mentors. And I would just ask her questions, and I kept telling her, like, towards the end of my degree or in my last year, I'm gonna enter Miss Mamelodi Sundowns. And at the end, when I was second princess, she came to me, and all the judges came to me. They were like, if not Miss Sundowns, Miss South Africa. Something in me. Then when I saw those Eastern Cape auditions open, I just applied. My mom always tells the story better. Use what you have, because she remembers. She always says to me, like, the dress I wore and the video that I shot, like, it wasn't the best, but it was what we had, and we made it work. And I think Sundowns, that's why I respect the brand so much, is that they don't discriminate. Doesn't matter where you come from, it's about your message. And I think for me, it was a message of the hope and the future that I want to see happening. Absolutely.
Yes,
in South
also,
Africa.
you know?
So, and then I entered, and then they chose 60 girls per province, and I think literally 4 days before, they sent us an email on a Monday, and it would happen on the Friday. And I felt ready, because I'd been watching football. At this point, I'm a Ndzotyana, and I was just like, this is my chance, and I'm gonna take it, and the rest was history.
Oh, that's beautiful. So going from there, I feel like now it's important to talk about Miss South Africa, you know? Because as you said that you were just looking at these pageants and all of that. Miss South Africa journey, why did you decide to go?
Sheesh, I think if you've known me, you would have known from the time I was already 7, 8. I was already saying that I'm going to be Miss South Africa. One of my aunts actually calls me Miss World, and she's called me that since I was a child. And at the time, Miss South Africa still had the franchise. And for me, I've always understood it as a leadership platform. I don't think the women who walk the Miss South Africa stage, not even just the women who win, can understand how as little girls you are embedding ideas of businesswomen, ideas of body positivity, ideas of the type of woman we can become in society, because it used to be broadcast on SABC, and everyone has access to it, and it sparks an idea in you that if you're stubborn enough, despite your circumstances, you're going to fight for that dream. So that's what inspired Miss South Africa. And I think as I grew older, and as you had hinted and alluded to, that I always say I'm going to be South African president in the year 2044. And for me, I see Miss South Africa as a leadership platform. I know I've seen the work that women are doing across the world in different parts of Africa just by having the opportunity to have been a finalist. So I understood that if I was able to do this through the Motsepe Foundation and Mamelodi Sundowns, imagine what more I can do, because there's so much that needs to be done in this country. But I also know that the type of women we have right now, and just the type of leaders, especially us as young people, we're so stubborn, and we're creating those spaces. And I mean, social media has shown us the digital space. Like, there's so many things where when things started, people were like, can they really be influencers? But now when I look at acting and just what's happening in that space, and how much it's evolved, and how social media and young people, are changing what things used to be, I get excited. So it's things like that for me, where I've understood it as a leadership platform, and that's why I had entered last year.
Okay, so are you still gonna go and re-enter from South Africa?
This morning, actually, what was so strange is I was listening to a podcast, and then it shuffled to a new one, which I had watched before, but when your YouTube just goes to the next, and it was of Anazad Shudufatso, and they were being interviewed by Mbumile Dwaba, and just something Anazad said about, firstly, she went, I think, more than 3 times to the platform, and she realized that each time she was growing in her resilience, and sometimes destiny delayed is not denied, but also it's knowing what it is you want to get out of it, because not everyone is going to walk out as a Miss South Africa, but it's the impact. So I think I'm a prayer warrior. I've been told for years to do Miss South Africa, but when I felt ready and I felt like God was saying go for it, I did it. So I'm going to keep praying about it, because I definitely think it's a platform that is life-changing.
So you spoke about social media and how influential social media is right now. And I am not sure how much impact social media had on your Miss South Africa journey.
I think you need to run this audience through. It definitely does.
I need to because I'm not going to say myself. Because I think that's the thing that I was sharing earlier on, that when my followers grew, I started becoming very anxious of what I post, what do I say, the caption, every single thing. Because I know that people are watching. They're gonna say something. Whether they say it on the comments, whether they say it on my DM.
People are shy.
They're gonna say something. So tell us about that, because you're not the only one. You are not the only one. I remember you were probably the 3rd, 2nd, 4th girl who Twitter was just like we know you.
Not
or
you, girl.
Exactly, you understand?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because, I mean, who are you to tell me what to do and what not to do? So, what was that? What's that?
I think we've normalized as a people, and when I say as a people, I'm going to be very direct, as black people, the pull her down syndrome.
Yeah.
For me, that's what it feels like. I think it's always so sad, like that when we think about X, which was then Twitter, we know that it's about black Twitter. It's about trying to pull someone and cancel culture, right? But for me, that was the second time I had trended.
What?
And
You trended for? Hey! I hope this podcast is also going to trend because, wow.
but you know what? And it was weird because the first time I trended was 2017.
Okay.
So 2017 was actually the year I had entered Miss Mamelodi Sundowns. So at the time I was Miss Mamelodi Sundowns Eastern Cape Princess. And I remember waking up, finding out with, you know, my peers and people from Port Elizabeth that the person I had been dating at the time was arrested for rape. And that was not something.
So your current boyfriend?
At the time, 2017.
Okay, not now, not now.
And you
And 2017.
Let's just clear that up.
2017.
2017.
Yes,
But current
babe.
now.
Yes, babe.
Like 20, yeah,
So,
current day.
so you know, so obviously I find out about it, and it immediate, like it wasn't even 2 hours from the time I found out that voice notes and things just started circulating. And you know, I'm so fortunate to just come from a family that firstly was aware that I'm dating because I was 19 at the time.
Okay, great. At
And
least-
the immediate response was, a lot of people are going to try and call you right now. You don't even know what's happening.
And the one
You've
answers from
heard,
you.
know,
Yeah.
you've heard from a friend
Yes,
who's
yes.
told you that they were there and this is what happened. So our suggestion is, when people ask you, say now where you've just heard, and leave it at that. And that's what I did. And I remember it was about the 28th of December when this happened in the morning, and in the evening already there were like people commenting on my stuff saying so and so has been arrested. Do you know? You know? And then
And people you don't know.
people I don't know, but people from Port Elizabeth as well. People were blowing up my phone. Fast track, probably 2 days later, the story actually makes national headlines. So they're like, you know, this person, they run with it, right? I haven't even at this point, I'm still processing everything that's happened, but to just show you the vileness of social media, people then started circulating photos that I had on my social media with this person, saying Thulani Ndzotyana is dating a rapist. So that was the first trend. And I remember getting a call from Sundowns at the time. They were like, listen, we're being tagged. You know, they're saying your Eastern Cape Princess is dating.
So they are trying to bring you down even with Miss Mamelodi.
Absolutely.
Not
And
just you as a person.
not just me as a person. And I remember, like, fortunately, I think, you know, when I think back, I'm like, everything happens for a reason. Because the lady was there at the time, she's also a lawyer. So she says to me, what do you know? And I tell her, this is what I know. What have you said? I actually haven't. Like, this is who I've spoken to, who told me what has happened. And I've just been declining calls and literally telling people that I also do not know. And then fast track, she's like, okay, so what are you going to do? I'm like, firstly, it's been these amount of days and I haven't gotten the full story, not even from the person. So I'm going to choose me. I know I'm not going to be with someone who's associated with such a crime. And I think the sad reality of it is PE is small, everyone knows each other. So even for me, I was like, I have access even to, you know, the survivor / victim.
Okay.
So immediately I was like, this is too sensitive to speak about because all of us know each other. And what then happened, I was just like, okay, I'm going to focus on my Miss Mamelodi Sundowns journey. I'm going to take down the pictures that people keep circulating, but the people who are around me will know what the truth is.
The truth. That's
And
what
I
matters.
continued preparing, I continued doing my CSI engagements, and Lord behold, on the 4th of Feb in 2018, I was then crowned the first Miss Mamelodi Sundowns from the Eastern Cape. Which I thank you.
Through all of that, guys.
Through all of that. And it was so tough for me going into that pageant week, I'm not gonna lie, because I kept thinking like every time people look at me or like supporters are pulling me, this is probably what they're seeing. I didn't experience it to the best of my ability because this thing, I remember like the case would go back to trial every Monday. I wasn't even following the case. I didn't even know what was happening. But people every Monday I knew people are gonna tag me. People are gonna make up lies. People were like I was going to court. Like there were all these false narratives that were giving me so much anxiety. And I think that was the first time that I realized that if you don't have family and people who know you, social media can be dark.
It can break
Because
you.
I was like, I don't have it in me. I'm surrounded by my family too much, but if God can take me now, this would make my life so much easier. But fortunately, like Miss Sundowns, like I said, like God showed up and showed off. And I think had I even not won Miss Sundowns, it would have been enough, because I think after I answered my top 5 answer, Ndate Mutsipe and his wife just stood up, and then everyone in the venue stood up. And for me, I'm like, to see that on stage, I was like, I'm still Thulani, and the person that I've always been, like, no one can take that away from me, and I'm still powerful. So fast track to Miss SA, I enter, we make top 30. Love it. So 2017 to 2022, so about 5 years later, I'm thinking, I've been living my life, I've been working with organizations like the UN for the Red Card campaign against gender-based violence, and for me it was never about me, because I still don't know what actually happened. I was not there. Yes, I was associated with this person at the time, but
you don't know.
I don't know.
And I'm sure you had forgotten about it. You just
absolutely. I didn't even think that. I thought people were gonna body shame me when I entered Miss South Africa, because I was at my COVID weight.
What is that?
I was 34 moving on to a 36, and I was comfortable in it, but obviously I had gained weight. And I remember like a few, because I believe in mentorship, and that's why Stride is there. So a few people who, you know, mentored me through it were also like, I wish you had started gymming or training earlier, kind of thing, you know, because there is an element of body, and we've seen, unfortunately, that South Africans, we should be, and we say we're inclusive, but then when we have a Miss South Africa who represents us, we are the first people to run, and you know. So I thought, like, literally, that was the backlash I was waiting for, because I was like, my skin, I had lichen planus at the time. I don't know if you guys know, but it's a skin condition where you get random patches, so you could still see it. So I felt like I had a few insecurities, but they were physical. It was never about who Thulani is, because I was very sure in her, and that's why I went in and I gave it everything, because I knew that this platform is not about that. Like, people might still think or might have their own opinions, but it's not that. And then after I made top 30, it was great, it was announced, and then I think the very next day I get to work, it wasn't even 5 minutes into work, I then realized that, listen, I'm trending.
Again. Over something you had forgotten about.
Absolutely. And this time it wasn't she's dating a rapist, it was she's a rape apologist. Meaning, you saying that I took the rapist side, I was bullying the victim.
Just because you didn't say anything.
But I think the craziest thing was seeing how people can run with something. Like, people were saying, she said this, or she saw this person at this place.
I was like, so you at court. I mean, everybody was convinced you were at court.
I know, but also, then I realized, I was like, you know what, when people, firstly, a lot of the people who bullied me were faceless. You know, I remember at some point after Miss South Africa, I was like, this is defamation of character. But it was going to cost me a lot more trying to find out who was even behind it, because they were hiding behind accounts and weren't using, like, it was a Maria Podesta, the account, and I was just like, this is so weird. But then it made me realize that when you know your truth, you need to get to a point where, what is enough for me? I know this never happened, and I'm not even going to carry the shame, and that's what I did going into the Miss South Africa journey. I felt very confident. Unlike when I went into Miss Mamelodi Sundowns, where I was like, what is happening?
What am I doing?
So the 19-year-old and the 24-year-old in me were just in a different headspace, and I'd grown so much. So it got more tension, but for me, the one thing I want to say to people is social media is not real. I know it as someone who works as an agent. I know it as someone who's managed social media accounts. People show you what they want.
Of course.
You know, what you are seeing here, you are not seeing what is behind it.
Behind the scenes, you don't know what's behind it.
You don't know who's there.
Exactly.
And what they're doing.
And we give ourselves so much anxiety over that. And I think for me, I had to see it again, because now I'm like, I try. Because even at Miss South Africa, the people, like, when I would sit and look through these comments, fake accounts. So I'm like, why aren't you? Because me, if I'm very opinionated as Thulani, if I have an opinion, I say it as me.
Why not brave enough to face me?
I just want people to know that social media is not real, and it certainly doesn't even define where you're going.
True.
Use it to your advantage. It is a tool, we can't deny it, but other people use it to weaponize, you know, and to be disruptive.
Which is hectic, but I think that is very important, because this podcast will be watched by people who are aspiring pageant queens or people who are already in it. And as I said, that you are not the first one. We've seen a lot of tweets, about Miss SA finalists or semi-finalists. She did this.
It almost feels like it's a culture now. Every year, let's find someone.
And that's one of the reasons why these kids are afraid to enter. Because now you're thinking, yo, I'm going to wake up trending for something I do not even know. Or something I've done.
And you know what's strange for me? I always say this, and I always go to this, like, if you watch the news and you just hear the things politicians are dragged for, the men in particular, every single day, they are still in those positions.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah,
shift.
yeah.
But Tina, when we're trying to break into those spaces, people have an idea of what perfection and what you as Thulani need to look. I'm me.
Yeah.
Just because there's a fun side of me or there's this element of me or I'm politically opinionated doesn't mean I don't deserve to be in certain spaces. Like, we're so much tougher on women. It's like, you just need to look like this all the time.
Yes,
like, we don't want to see another side. Don't say the wrong thing. Don't use the wrong word. But it's like, are we even holding our leaders to those standards? The people who run the country and make decisions on our behalf.
It is not happening.
And that's how pageants were back in the day. So you needed to be a perfectionist.
And we need to change that. We're talking about now the political side of things. You are, I'll say an aspiring president. I hope you become president because we've never had you.
We are speaking into existence in this room.
So that when we watch this on YouTube and say,
Years back we could
were
revert
sitting with the
back.
president, you know? So, what is rather something that makes you wake up every day and say, I still want to be the president? Because this country's a mess. I'm not gonna lie. We are in the ghetto. But what makes you still want to? Because if it was someone else, we're like, actually, this is too much. I'm not doing this. You know. But what makes you wake up every day and say, okay, I still want to do this? And what is your view on young people voting next year? I mean, next year we're voting.
Firstly, do you still want to be the president?
She better want to be. She better want to be.
So 2044 is a train in motion, and I know regardless of what the country looks like in 2044, the impact that it would have had in either inspiring or being a part of creating leaders, which is what I try and do through Stride Institute and even in the workspaces that I occupy, that is something that I don't take for granted. I know it's my calling. So regardless of what it looks like, it might have started forming shape as presidency, it could be more, it could be ambassador, it could be anything. But I know that in the year 2044, South Africa is not going to look like it does now. Interestingly enough, I was actually about to make a point on when you asked, like, what is the point of going? I was thinking, I'm like, what if people like Ndzotyana Migo had not thought to leave behind what they've left us with? But what's interesting is that when you read I Write What I Like, in the prelude, there's a part that speaks about a future South Africa, and in that book it says 2044. And prior to that was not my reason for 2044. So by the way, this is something in rereading it when the year started that I saw, and I highlighted that. I'm like,
the universe.
What is the universe trying to? But I think for me, so many people have fought to get us to where we are now. We are sitting here because they're a woman. Firstly, even in the pageant space, all they needed to do was just represent themselves, whether or not they won, for us to be able to break those boundaries. And if we stop, then what are we allowing the country to become? Because I always say, I'm like, the people who are trying to destroy South Africa wake up every day and they do that. So as people who are trying to save South Africa, if we go in and we stop and then we're like, we're not going to vote, we leave the wolves to take charge of this country. So we have to vote, and it is registration weekend. I know I've been posting through Stride Institute. That's very important, guys. Go to the IEC website, go to your nearest IEC office. It is something that is absolutely key and crucial that we do. And for me, I'm not going to influence here, right? But vote. Vote. Like, start somewhere. I'm like, leaders are not perfect beings. And I think this idea of us wanting someone to tick all these boxes is not realistic.
It's not realistic.
Listen to what people are saying. There's a war happening at the moment. There are like countries and like politicians and organizations that are aligning to something that your own conscience wouldn't allow you. So then why would you even gravitate towards voting for them? Read the different manifestos. I think politics, don't play into what they do amongst each other. Play into what you want to see for South Africa. And because I know that I want to be a part of a change, and I know that people have died for us to be where we are right now, and for us to vote, we take it for granted as Black people. Abelungu vote. They never tell you. I sit in a lot of circles. They'll never tell you they vote for. They'll also speak badly when you speak badly about a John Steenhuisen. But I'm like, who is voting? Who is voting for that person to be there?
You know,
they don't take it for granted. So Tina, as a Bandaba Mnyama, who firstly, we are the ones in the townships, in the rural areas, we are the ones who are still trying to break into university. The AfriForum at the moment is trying to push BE falling.
Yeah,
And I look at the workspaces I'm in, I'm like, there's not enough representation of people who look like me.
Yes.
So then why am I, Thulani, going to think
Keep quiet.
I've made it, it's enough, let me not go vote, we need to vote.
2024 is coming, so that means you are closer to 2044.
It's gonna be 20 years.
20 years, exactly. So, what are the plans? What are the plans? Where do kids sign up to be part of Stride Institute and all of that?
So Stride Institute is an organization that was formed informally in 2018, and I always just get a little like goosebumps when I think about it, because people would actually come into my space, and at the time I was living in a studio apartment, and I would just help people find their confidence, because I know that because I can speak for myself. If I bump into someone in an elevator, in a lift, even how I got my job, my boss will always tell people and say, I met this girl wearing a 2044 t-shirt, and I just asked her about the t-shirt, and I never forgot her. And when there was a position that was open, I thought of her immediately. And now I'm an HOD of that company.
That is amazing.
So for me, I'm like, even in informal conversations, like sometimes, I wasn't even thinking I'm going to work at Talent ETC at the time, because I was working for a different agency, and I was working, as a social media manager. That was not the space I was thinking, but my confidence and my ability to convey my thoughts was something that got me. I believe it was the same thing that won me Miss Mamelodi Sundowns, and it's the same reason that people will gravitate towards Stride. So I want young people to believe in their dreams. I think a lot of us, either through bullying or just the circumstances that we see or the environment, our dreams die in those environments. But if Stride can share information and get you confident and get you ready to fight for your dreams, whatever they may look like, that's what I seek to do. And because I've worked in the modeling and entertainment industry, I use modeling and pageant coaching, to groom young people. But it's not the only thing. Like, I have women who want to prepare for job interviews. I have women who are trying to find their confidence, and like, I can't walk in heels, and they'll do a session, and it's not to be on a stage. So that's why I'm like, for me, the biggest thing is, if you can have and you can walk away just feeling confident to whatever room that you walk into, you occupy it, and you are comfortable in being, and your imposter syndrome knows it doesn't belong there, then that's what Stride is. So through that, I've been able to, before I came here, I went to a casting. I started at a casting this morning, and one of my striders was there, and I met her when she was 15 and I was 20 at the time. Look at how time flies. And she's using Stride Institute to go to auditions, because I'll share opportunities that I see with her. She has walked so many shows, but at the moment hasn't signed to the agency she's trying to get into. And I was like, but that's not going to stop you. She's walked FASH, she's walked SA Fashion Week, she's gone internationally, there's so much that she's doing, and it's all about sharing the knowledge, because I'm able to say, listen, this rate, go in like this, let's edit that. So Stride is not an agency, but it's definitely an empowerment, and it's about upskilling people and sharing what I know from being an agent, from being a booker, from being a model myself, and saying, how can you do better? So
I love that. I think this was so important, because you see Stride on Instagram and you're just thinking, okay, modeling academy, pageants, models and stuff.
Now
it's a big part of it, but it's not only that. And I know, it's weird, when Stride started, it was a balance of men and females, and then I don't want to leave anyone out. And now it predominantly women, and I always say, I'm like, it's because we know as women we need empowerment. I'm not saying men don't need it, but I'm like, we know we have to sometimes fight harder, so we invest in that, right? But it's not just that. I remember when we launched the Red Card campaign through the UN, it was my male striders who play rugby, who weren't necessarily, they were just trying to become public speakers, who are part of the campaign. So please, please, please don't think it's just for women.
Okay, so at this rate, I feel like Stride we should add an ad here, okay? Like an ad right now, right here of Stride, okay? We need to advertise this.
Well, RSA, I'm going nowhere. I've been seeing the great work you guys are doing, so I'm just like, I'm glad this has happened.
We appreciate that a lot. Hopefully we can collaborate. Guys,
absolutely.
After this, it's going down.
Hopefully I win an award.
But with the great work, I mean,
you spaghetti today.
But we appreciate that a lot. So, does Stride, just my last question, does Stride teach like skills? Like if I want to be a makeup artist, hairstylist, like do you think of maybe expanding to that part?
So I remember when I prayed about, so Stride came first and it was initially Stride Pageants.
Okay.
And then when I was registering it, I started praying and I was like, it's going to be an institution. So like right now I work as an artist agent. I manage actors and I manage presenters and people who are in the entertainment space. I have knowledge of that.
Everything.
You know, so it's the different things where it's like, it's going to become an institution where we are trying to stride forward. So for instance, I've collaborated as well with a few CSI initiatives that help people register NPOs, for instance. So it's about sharing of knowledge, because sometimes we have these ideas in us and we think it's so expensive. By the way, while I'm here, people who register, please just do it on CIPC. Don't pay people who register for you. It's like $850 and that time to register a business is like $120. And we sometimes think it's so expensive. And I'm like, teach yourself, like creating your own email address. I create and run the Stride website, for instance, if you look at it.
Love that.
I'm just like, we need to teach ourselves certain skills because sometimes we think, it's 1,000 rand to have a website. People are not going to think I'm serious and I don't have it. So it's sharing of knowledge because now I have people who will equip me and I'll do the next thing. So yeah, the institution is going to grow. It's
I love that. I love that. So you guys heard now, like don't
pay.
We
Sorry
are
to the
yeah.
young people who are pushing it.
But they should push. Really, you can't go from 120
Like make it 300.
to 800. Yeah, that's what you guys are scamming us. That's wrong.
That was not my intention.
Okay, guys. We're gonna have this chat off camera. But thank you so much. Any last words from me? Ngiyabonga. Thank you. That is one thing I want to say, that you have inspired us a lot. We loved having you here. I had a lot of fun. Thank you. Any last words to the camera?
My last words would be, especially to people who enter pageants, there's so much that happens in the pageant industry that we see. And I think it's never going to change if we don't call it out. I think pageants, if used correctly, can empower. So let us not be silent.
Thank you very much.
Wow, there you have it, guys. I mean, you've had it all. Please don't forget to follow her. Don't forget to go and register under Stride.
Yeah, don't forget to follow up. Do they subscribe? It's us on Instagram, but also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel because we're bringing you premium content. I mean, what more do you want? Now you know you can go on CIPC. Guys, come on. Stride and stuff. So please do subscribe and like and I tell you all the time, guys, I'm looking at you. Do it now. Do it now. I'm looking at you. Do it. Thank you very much, guys. Till next time.
Thank you.